What if I told you there are Porsches sitting on the market right now, cheaper than a brand new Corolla, but in a few years, they could be worth double? Sounds crazy, right? Here's the thing, the Porsche market doesn't behave like normal cars. It behaves like art, like watches, like investments. While most cars lose value the second you drive them off the lot, the right Porsche does the opposite. It drops, stabilizes, and then quietly climbs. And today, we're diving deep into the cheapest Porsche models you can actually afford right now that are sitting right at that perfect point in the curve. The moment before everyone says, I should have bought one when they were cheap. Chapter 1, the Porsche Secret. Most people don't understand the biggest mistake people make. They think buying a Porsche is expensive. No, buying the wrong Porsche is expensive because unlike most car communities that argue about horsepower or fuel economy, Porsche enthusiasts obsess over things like option codes, factory specs, transmission types, even the stitching on the seats. It sounds obsessive, but that obsession is exactly why values hold and rise. Because in the Porsche world, details equals demand, demand equals value. That's why two identical looking cars can have a $20,000 difference in price. One has the right spec, the other doesn't. And this is where things get interesting, because right now there's a window of opportunity, a sweet spot where depreciation has already hit the market, hasn't fully caught on, and enthusiasts are starting to pay attention. That's where you win, not by buying the newest, but by buying the smartest. Chapter 2, the Gateway Porsche, Make an S, 2017 to 2019. Let's start with the one people love to hate, the SUV that isn't a real Porsche, the Porsche Macan. But here's the truth, this car prints money for Porsche and quietly makes smart buyers very happy. The sweet spot, 2017 to 2019, Macan SY, because it hits that perfect balance. Enough performance to feel like a Porsche modern tech without insane depreciation and a price that has already taken the biggest hit. It's quick, it handles like something much smaller, and unlike most SUVs, it actually feels alive. This is the car that turns regular drivers into Porsche fans, and right now, you can find them for shockingly low prices, which makes it one of the best entry points into the Porsche ecosystem. And here's the key, as more people enter the brand through cars like this, demand increases, and when demand increases, even the cheap models start climbing. Chapter 3, the sleeper SUVs, Cayenne GTS, and manual legends. Now things get interesting, because Porsche did something crazy. They made SUVs that enthusiasts actually care about. First up, the Porsche Cayenne GTS. This isn't just an SUV, it's a V8 powered monster that happens to carry groceries. No turbos, no delay, just instant power and a sound that reminds you why engines matter. And here's why it's important. Big naturally aspirated V8s are disappearing, which means in a few years, cars like this won't just be desirable, they'll be collectible. Then there's the weird one, the unicorn, the manual Cayenne. Yes, a full-size SUV with a stick shift. It makes zero sense. And that's exactly why it's valuable, because collectors love rare, unusual, story-driven cars. And this checks all three. This isn't about speed, it's about character. And in the Porsche world, character always wins long term. Chapter 4, the underdog 911 to 996 Carrera. Now we enter the heart of Porsche, the 911, and specifically, the most misunderstood one of all, the Porsche 911 996, the one people made fun of, the fried egg headlights car. But here's the twist, that hate kept prices low, and now the market is waking up, because underneath the jokes, the 996 is lightweight, raw, engaging, truly analog. It's not filled with screens or fake driving modes, it's just a driver's car, and the best spec, manual coupe limited slip differential, if you can find it. That's where value lives. This is the classic pattern. First, people ignore it, then enthusiasts defend it, then collectors chase it. We're right in the middle of that transition. Chapter 5, the poor man's turbo, 996 Carrera 4S. If you want presents, this is the one, the Porsche 911. Carrera 4S, 996 wide stance. Aggressive look. all-wheel drive confidence. It looks expensive, even when it's not. And that matters more than you think, because perception drives demand, and demand drives prices. This car gives you the look of a turbo, the feel of a 911 without the insane price tag, which makes it one of the most visually desirable budget 911s out there. And as clean examples disappear, values only go one way. Chapter 6, the sweet spot, 997 Carrera. If the 996 is the underdog, the Porsche 911 997 is the perfectionist choice. This is where Porsche got everything right. Modern enough to live with daily, old enough to feel mechanical, and still connected in a way newer cars aren't. The biggest highlight? Hydraulic steering, something modern cars are losing, and once it's gone, it becomes valuable, because you can't replicate that feeling digitally. The 997 is the bridge between eras, and bridges always become important. Chapter 7, the performance bargain 996 Turbo. This is where things get insane. The Porsche 911 Turbo 996. For the price of a basic sedan, you get a car that can destroy supercars. Massive performance, legendary engine, proven reliability, and most importantly, respect is growing because people are realizing this isn't just fast, it's one of the last true analog supercar killers, and once the market fully realizes that, prices won't stay low for long. Chapter 8, the Smart Play, Cayman and Boxster 987.2. Here's a controversial truth that a lot of Porsche purists don't want to admit. Some of the smartest Porsche buys right now aren't rear-engine icons, they're mid-engine precision tools, like the Porsche Cayman 987 and the Porsche Boxster 987. These cars were never built to impress people at a valet, they were built to impress you, and that changes everything, because when you drive one, you immediately understand. The balance feels natural, almost telepathic. The steering is sharp and alive in your hands. The car rotates around you like it's reading your mind. This isn't just performance. It's connection, and for years that didn't matter because the market was obsessed with one thing. Does it have a 911 badge? So the Cayman and Boxster sat in the shadows, quietly delivering a better driving experience for less money. But now, the mindset is shifting. Enthusiasts are starting to care less about status and more about how a car actually feels. And when that shift happens, cars like these explode in popularity. Now let's talk about why the 987.2 generation is the one to watch. Because this isn't just another version, it's the refined evolution, improved engine reliability, better long-term ownership confidence, more trust from buyers and collectors. This is the version where people feel comfortable holding on to the car, and that's where the magic happens. Because when owners stop selling, inventory dries up. And when supply drops in a growing enthusiast market, prices don't just rise, they accelerate. These are the cars people buy for just a few years and end up keeping for a decade because every drive reminds them, this is why I bought a Porsche. Chapter 9, the luxury fighter, Panamera GTS. Let's be honest, a four-door Porsche sounds like a compromise, something built for practicality, not passion. And yet, the Porsche Panamera GTS completely destroys that idea. This car doesn't feel like a sedan, it feels like a sports car wearing a suit. It's the kind of machine that can take you to a business meeting in total comfort, then turn a quiet highway into your personal racetrack, and the craziest part, it does both without switching personalities, because at its core, it's still a Porsche. That means precise steering strong, confident power delivery, and a chassis that feels smaller than it actually is. This is what Porsche does better than almost anyone else. They make big cars feel small. Now let's talk about why it's undervalued. Simple, the market doesn't get it. Sedans don't have the same hype as coupes. They don't get posted as much. They don't dominate YouTube thumbnails, so demand stays lower than it should be. But here's the opportunity. The car is better than its reputation, and whenever that happens, you get a gap between real value and market perception. That's where smart buyers step in, because eventually, people start to realize this isn't just a practical Porsche. This is one of the best all-around cars they've ever made, and when that realization spreads, the prices follow. Chapter 10, the risky bet. Taycan, now we step into the future. And it looks like this. The Porsche Taycan, this car is a technological statement. It's silent, but aggressive, smooth, but brutally quick, modern, but still unmistakably Porsche. And when you drive it, it feels like you've skipped 10 years ahead. But here's where things get complicated, because the Taycan isn't just competing with other cars, it's competing with time. And time moves fast in the EV world. Battery technology improves every year. Newer models come with better range software updates, make older cars feel outdated. So what happens? Values drop fast, not because the car is bad, but because the world around it keeps evolving. And that creates a very different kind of market behavior. Unlike traditional Porsches that stabilize and rise, the Taycan follows a different curve. Sharp initial depreciation, continued pressure from new tech, slower stabilization. That's why it's risky. But here's where it gets interesting, because risk also creates opportunity. If you enter the market at the wrong time, you lose money. But if you wait, if you let the big depreciation hit pass, you can step in at a massive discount. And suddenly, you're getting supercar level acceleration, high-end luxury cutting-edge tech for a fraction of the original price. At that point, it stops being a risky buy and starts becoming a strategic one. Chapter 11, the left field classics, 944 and 968. Now we go back in time, before SUVs, before touch screens, before driving modes, back to when cars were simple and pure. The Porsche 944 and the Porsche 968. These cars represent a completely different era of Porsche. Front engine, balanced, driver focused, and for a long time, they were ignored because they weren't 911s. But just like we saw with the 996, the market eventually comes back. And when it does, it hits hard, because nostalgia is one of the most powerful forces in the car world. Every generation reaches a point where they start chasing the cars they couldn't afford when they were younger. And for many enthusiasts today, these were the dreams, the posters, the magazine covers, the cars they promised themselves they'd own one day. Now combine that with reality. Many examples have been neglected or modified clean. Original cars are becoming rare. Enthusiast interest is rising. That creates a perfect storm, because once collectors start hunting for clean examples, supply disappears almost overnight. And when that happens, prices don't move slowly, they jump. These aren't just cars anymore, they're becoming time capsules, and time capsules always gain value. Chapter 12, the golden rule of Porsche investing. Now here's the part most people skip, and the part that actually matters the most, because none of this works if you don't follow one simple rule. Not all Porsches are equal. Two identical models, same year, same color, same mileage, can have completely different futures. Why? Because value isn't just about the car, it's about the spec, story, and condition. This is where smart buyers separate themselves from everyone else. They don't just ask, is this a good deal? They ask, is this the right car? That means looking deeper. Does it have the desirable options? Is it manual or automatic? Has it been maintained properly? Is the history clean and documented? Because here's the harsh truth. The cheapest Porsche is rarely the cheapest Porsche. It's usually the most expensive one. Long-term, project cars, neglected examples, too good to be true listings. They pull you in with a low price and then drain your wallet slowly. Smart buyers avoid that trap. They focus on clean examples. Strong specs cars with a clear story. Because those are the ones that hold value, attract buyers, and appreciate over time. At the end of the day, this isn't about flipping cars. It's about owning something that gets better with time. So remember, don't just buy a Porsche, buy the right Porsche. Because of that decision, it's the difference between a fun purchase and a smart investment. Your future self will thank you. Right now, there are people buying these cars quietly, patiently, strategically, and in a few years, they'll be the ones saying, I got it before prices went crazy. The question is, will you be one of them, or the one watching from the sidelines saying, I should have bought one? If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, drop a comment. Which Porsche would you buy? And subscribe for more high-level car content, because this isn't just about cars anymore. It's about making smarter moves and building a lifestyle around it. Porsche isn't just a brand, it's a strategy.